So if I'm approaching this junction at the end of the road, I'm gonna go right. If I press my clutch down now, you see the car's not slowing down. And then by the time I get here, I'm gonna have to brake really hard. Here are 9 things that you're doing wrong with your clutch and how to do them properly. Let's go. One of the main things that lots of people do wrong with their clutch is bringing it up too fast when they're trying to move off. I'll show you what I mean. So let's say we're trying to move now. What a lot of learners will do is bring up the clutch really quick like that, and then you end up stalling because it's way too fast. To make sure you don't stall, you need to take more time with the clutch. Count between 3 or 5 seconds in your head as you're moving off, and that will make it a lot smoother. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. So once it starts moving like now, 1, 2, 3, and then that way, I don't stall. Even if I don't use any gas in the background, just the clutch by itself, it's not going to stall because I've done it nice and carefully. Especially in a situation where you're trying to move off fast, so like a roundabout for instance, or a junction, learners will think, oh, I've got a chance to go, and then they'll try to bring the clutch up fast, and then that'll make them take longer because now you've stalled. Even in a situation where you're trying to go quick or trying to move off at a decent pace, you still want to bring the clutch just to the biting point and still hold it for a few seconds and release it slowly. Another mistake that learners make is coasting into turns or bends. So like pressing the clutch down around here, I don't need to press the clutch down right now. If I'm going into a bend or a turn, I can just use my brake to slow the car down. I don't need to use the clutch. Using the clutch in that situation can make the car go faster and maybe even lose control. So you want to make sure that you don't use the clutch when you're going around corners. Another mistake that learners make when they're using about the clutch is they'll press the clutch down first and then brake. You should do this when you're in first gear, but in second gear and above, you should just use the brakes first and then afterwards use the clutch. So like now I'm braking, then now I want to go slower, I'll use the clutch around now and go into first gear. If I'm using my clutch first in those situations to slow the car down, I might end up actually going faster. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. So if I'm approaching this junction at the end of the road, I'm gonna go right. If I press my clutch down now, you see the car's not slowing down. And then by the time I get here, I'm gonna have to brake really hard to make the car go slower. I should have started braking first, bring my speed down, and then once my revs go to around 1,000, that's when I'll think about using the clutch to maybe go into a lower gear. But if the revs are above 1,000, you shouldn't really be using the clutch because you don't need it at that point there. Another mistake that a lot of learners make is using the clutch every time they want to brake or slow down. So like now for this roundabout, they'll use the clutch and the brake at the same time, and then bring the clutch up again. And then for the bend, they might even think, oh, I need to slow down, so let me press the clutch. But you notice the clutch is not slowing the car down at all. Yeah, the clutch doesn't slow the car down, the brakes slow the car down. So if I want to slow down, I'll use my brakes first. So I'm approaching this roundabout coming up, I'll start braking first. Let me go left here. And then once I get around here, then I'll use my clutch to go into a lower gear, bring my clutch up smoothly, checking that right, and then carrying on. So if I want to brake, let's say I want to brake for this situation with this bus coming towards us, instead of using my clutch, I just brake a little bit with my foot brake. No need to press the clutch down at all. And just like this situation where the car is a bit narrow here, I'll use my brakes. Yeah. And then if I want to gear down, then I'll use my clutch and bring it up slowly for the turn. But if you're in first gear and you're going slowly, let's say you're in traffic and you want to stop or slow down, then that's when you're going to press your clutch down first. So let me give you an example. So like if I'm stopping here now, if I brake first and I press the clutch after, there's a strong chance that I will stall. So right now the car is stalled if I press the clutch a bit too late. So when you're going slowly in first gear, this is when you want to clutch first and then brake afterwards. So if I'm going really slowly now and I want to stop, I'll put my clutch down first and then brake gently. That way the revs stay around 1,000 and the car doesn't stall. When you're reversing, it's really important to keep your speed down so that you can do it safely. And the mistake some learners make is they bring the clutch up way too high and then go too fast. Let me show you what I mean. So if I'm going to reverse now, I've looked around, make sure it's safe. If I bring my clutch up and I hold it still at this position here, you see the car will start picking up speed and I can start hearing that noise. If I hear that, I'm definitely going too fast. I need to slow down a bit. So to avoid going too fast with this in this kind of situation, when you're reversing, don't bring the clutch up really high and hold it at that position, because the car's going to go too fast. Instead, have it just around there and then bring it down around the biting point and then bring it down again. So you see this way, the car doesn't go too fast, and then I can also spot any people around me, stop for them, look around again, and then up to the biting point, down a little bit, up to the biting point. This way it keeps the speed really slow, because if I do it like that, too high, you see it goes faster and faster, which is not ideal for reversing in a safe way. So another mistake I see a lot of learners do is not put the clutch down enough. So I'm coming up to the junction here, and then they'll bring it down to this level, and it's still trying to move the car forward. I can feel the car rumbling, because if I come off the brake now, you see the car is still trying to move even though I'm in second gear, because I haven't pushed it down enough. So to avoid that, make sure you're pushing it down all the way until you can't go any further, basically. That way you know the car's not going to be trying to move. And you see this happen when people are trying to stop as well. So let's say I'm trying to pull up on the left just there, and what you see a lot of learners do is they'll brake, but then they'll press the clutch down a little bit, and you see the car is still trying to move, and then eventually ends up stalling, and they're like, oh, why did it stall? It's because the clutch wasn't down all the way. So the correct way to do this is making sure it's down all the way. Let me show you. I'm going to turn left at the end of the road. So this time, once I know I'm going to press the clutch, I'll push it all the way down. That way there's no more power from the engine being transferred to the wheels, and I can brake smoothly as well. Checking my right side, it's looking good. Then I can make my move. And it's also not ideal when you're trying to change gears to have your clutch halfway down. So like, let me show you an example. So if I'm trying to go into 3 now and put my clutch halfway down, you see it's really stiff on the gear stick, and then I'll have to force it into gear. That's not ideal. If you're feeling resistance from the gear stick, it's probably because you haven't put your clutch down enough. So now I'm going to gear down to second. This time I'll put my clutch all the way down, and you see it's nice and light. I don't have to worry about using lots of force to change into gear. So like here, going to first nice and easily, because the clutch is all the way down. So right now I've moved off. The clutch should be all the way up now, and then I'll change into second. But what you see some learners do is they'll move off, and then they'll have the clutch halfway on, and then when they come off the gas, you see the car jolting like this, and they're thinking, why is it doing that? It's because you're still on the clutch. You need to make sure you come fully off, and then when you change into second, come fully off, and then add gas. So getting the timing right when to press the clutch is really important. What you see some learners do is they'll press the clutch way too late. So like, I'm coming to a stop here because there's a traffic jam up ahead. I'm in third gear. I'm going to start slowing down. They'll feel the car rumbling, but then they won't do anything about it, and they'll keep braking, and then they'll try to go for the clutch, but by then it's too late. You've stalled now. To avoid that, when you feel the rumbling, it's a little bit too late by then already. You should already press the clutch down a bit earlier than that. But once you feel the rumbling of your car, definitely put your clutch down, especially if you're going to go slower, because it's only going to get worse and worse, and then eventually you're going to stall. Once you see the revs go around 1,000 and you know you're going to slow down more, put your clutch down and prepare to stop or go into a lower gear. So this time, to stop the car from struggling once I'm stopping, I'm going to make sure that I press the clutch down earlier. So I'm in third gear right now. I'm turning left at the end here. Mirror, mirror, signal. I'll start braking, and I can see the revs already going to 1,000. So now I can press my clutch down. Then I can decide what gear I want. I'm going to go into 1 because it's kind of busy here. I can't really see properly. And then I'll make my turn. I could have gone into second if it was much clearer and I could have gone faster, but first was okay as well. So don't leave it until it's too late to press your clutch down. Otherwise your car is going to stall. Because people are so scared of coasting, what you see a lot of learners do in this kind of situation is come off the clutch straight away and have it down here, and then think, oh, then when they start to brake, and then they'll stall and they're trying to brake or struggle with the car because they're thinking, oh, if I keep my clutch down, if I keep my foot on the clutch, that's coasting. It's not. It's controlling the car. So like around here, there's lots of slow moving traffic. So instead of having my foot down here, I'm gonna have my foot ready. Yeah. So now I can press the clutch if I need to, and then when they're moving a bit more, I can bring my clutch up, and then they're stopping again, and then down again. You see, the whole time my foot is on the clutch. Too many learners in this kind of situation are too quick to come off the clutch and think, oh yeah, I can start driving now because I don't want to be seen to be coasting. Coasting is when you're losing control of the car, when you're going around corners or going downhill with your clutch down. This kind of driving requires a lot of clutch control. So don't be afraid to have your foot on the clutch and controlling the car so that it doesn't go too fast, so that when it comes time for you to stop, you can stop smoothly, because you will need to use the clutch to stop the car. And if your foot is not ready, you're not going to be able to stop properly. Another mistake I see a lot of learners do is bring up the clutch way too fast once they've geared down. So if I'm going to second here, they'll bring the clutch up like that, and then it makes the car jolt, and it's not a very comfortable ride. To make it smoother, bring the clutch up slower, so that way it eases it into the gear and it's going to be a lot smoother. Let me show you what I mean. So let's say I'm in third now, but I want to slow down for that turn and go into second. Instead of yanking my foot up once I've changed into second, I'm going to go bring up much slower. So I'll go into second, bring up slowly, and then it's engaged now. That way you don't get that jolt, you don't get that nasty shock. It's nice and smooth.